Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant Tillman has to put it up with the buzzer. He banks it!
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Season 2 premiere of Scotty Talks NBA. I am here with a very special guest, my guy, Parcero Philly. You guys can find him on Twitter at Parcero Philly. Covers all 5 of the Philly major sports across all social media platforms. Some of the social media platforms are down right now, but I promise you, Parcero, welcome to the show, my man.
No, my man Scotty, thank you so much for having me on, man. I'm excited. It's an interesting time right now in Philly sports. You know, we were just talking about how the Phillies just got done. So now, especially like for myself, my attention is now heading towards the Sixers and the Flyers.
Yeah.
Right now, are flying high in the MLS, and the Eagles are. That's a topic for another day, Scotty. but attention's all on the Sixers and Flyers. I'm excited to talk about some NBA, not just the Sixers here today. It's been an off season we didn't ask for, that's for sure, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about it all, my man.
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna dive into a bunch today, as Parcero mentioned there. We'll get into a little bit of Ben Simmons, a little bit of Joel Embiid, Sixers overall view. Then we'll get into some playoff predictions and get into some of our player rankings. Before we get into it, I do have to plug in DSM Media here. Make sure you're subscribed to DSM Media on YouTube, as well as following us on Twitter at DSM_media. As you guys know, we are now sponsored by Manscaped. So, of course, we got to plug in Manscaped here. DSM Media is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code DSM at manscaped.com. Manscaped engineered the ultimate groin and body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality and an incredibly comfortable grooming experience. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. This upgraded trimmer includes a multi-function on and off switch that can engage a travel lock. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. And did I mention the wireless charging? The new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DSM at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code DSM. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will certainly thank you. That being said, let's get into the NBA action, my man, Parcero.
Let's go.
Let's start with the hot topic of Philly this whole entire offseason. A battle that I've been on both sides because I'm arguing with, opposite fan bases about the value of number 25, Ben Simmons. And then on the other side, I'm arguing about why we need to trade Ben Simmons. So, I'm kind of stuck in the middle of this rock and a hard place. We can get into specifics. We can kind of just gently run over some of the topics, but Ben Simmons wants out of town, right? He wants out of Philly. Some say we turned our back on him. Some say he turned his back on us. I guess that's a good place to start. Where do you fall in that belief? Do you feel that this is more on the Sixers? Is it more on Ben Simmons? Where are you with this?
Well, I'll say this. I've said this from the beginning. I've always felt like the Sixers kind of mismanaged Ben Simmons. And what I mean by that, look, Ben, his whole life, the kid is from Australia, from Melbourne, has always been brought up as the golden child. He's the future of Aussie basketball and all these great things. Even when he was here in America playing high school ball, he had the same kind of accolades come to him when he was in LSU, all the hype around him. He had a whole documentary put out on Showtime, right? So when he comes here to Philadelphia, right, he's got Brett Brown, someone who he knows very well from growing up in Australia. I always felt like the Sixers, I felt like they just weren't pushing him enough from the get, right? We all saw the talent, and I still see the talent. I still feel that he can be that elite player if you would just take one part of his game more seriously. We know he's a great defender. We know he's a great ball facilitator. But it's the offensive game that's been killing us. It's why we've been so hard on him. I've been like you. I've defended Ben Simmons from day one. The minute we drafted him out of LSU, I loved it. He was my guy. But this has definitely gone down the wrong path. I do believe that Ben Simmons is at fault here. When I watched the situation break out, there's a lot of he said, she said type of stuff going on. And that is never good for any type of situation.
Yeah.
Ben, at the end of the day, he's talking way too much. And at the end of the point, I was with you, Scotty. I was with you. I was before it got to the point it was at. I was defending Ben Simmons' value. I was even defending Daryl Morey. We all remember the crazy, outlandish package he wanted for Ben Simmons. And I was saying, listen, we're trying to meet somewhere in the middle. We're not expecting 3 first-round draft picks and 2 stars. No, we weren't going to expect, but we were trying to get somewhere in the middle. And right now, that value is hurting because now what we're seeing, the NBA is seeing this. Okay. A player the stature of Ben Simmons should not be acting the way he is. All right. You take the loss against Atlanta. All right. You take the faults of what you did in that series. You move on, you learn from it, and you get better the next season. Whereas Ben, I feel like he's making every single excuse except for owning up to what he did in that playoff series. Hack-a-Ben was a real thing. And when Tobias Harris only showed up for one game in that series, Joel Embiid's only having like 8 turnovers, or he's having all these turnovers in that series. We were just hoping that the guy who makes max money and Ben Simmons would step up. And I do think that the fact that Ben Simmons is taking it to this point, he's starting not playing the whole year. He's willing to miss or he's willing to lose $5 million. He already got part of his salary already taken away from him. They did not pay that $8 million. The Sixers did not pay Ben Simmons and his party that $8 million. Like Rich Paul said, the war has started. And listen, we better buckle up as Sixers Nation because it's already ugly. And it's gonna get even worse. I made the joke. I grew up in a Latino household. Novelas and soap operas was a big thing. This is one novella. This is one soap opera. I'm over. Cancel it, my man. I'm over.
Yeah. I'm with you as far as just the drama, right? The drama just never stops in this city, and you saw it with Carson Wentz. Now we're on to Ben Simmons. It's like it just keeps going. But my biggest thing for Ben Simmons is, does he even like basketball? Like at this point, what does that show you as a GM, as another coach, if this guy is willing to lose close to $9 million just to not pick up a basketball? Like that's what it comes down to.
No, and even to that point, what kind of a player is like, yo, I'll go anywhere. Trade me to Cleveland, trade me to Minnesota, trade me. Who says that? Those are franchises that are failing.
Take me out of contention. And, you pointed out some of the biggest arguments against everything that Ben has said. Get me a team where it's built around me, or get me a team that it fits me more. It doesn't matter, dude. We've tried multiple things with this guy. We put him in the dunker spot where everybody said to put him. And what did he do? He still passed out of the dunker spot. And you mentioned the free throws. There's nothing you can do with this guy when he's shooting 33% from the free throw line. Every team will do that in the playoffs. You won't see it in the regular season because it's not that important. But when you get down to crunch time, and this is the difference between 1 or 2 games in a series, that's a huge deal. And, that's where it comes down to, like, all the excuses. Like, forget about that, man. We've tried you in different positions. You turned into a deer in headlights against Atlanta. And that was the difference between Tobias and Joel Embiid. Yes, Tobias Harris did not play well. He didn't play well in that Atlanta series really at all. I think there was one game where he actually played up to his potential, and I believe it was either game 5 or game 6 where he actually played well.
Game 6, he had like 24 points, but I know what you're saying.
Still shot like really bad in that game as well. But for the most part, he at least still attacked the rim. Like, he was missing easy layups, and you can fault him for that. But at least his initiative, his drive did not stop. That's the same thing with Joel Embiid. It's like, yes, he was turning the ball over in some inopportune places. He wasn't making the right reads out of double teams. He was trying to force up shots. But what do you expect him to do when one of the players out of the 5 on the court are simply not contributing on offense? Ben is a great defender, and he'll ride that, to all his stardom and all his money. But at the end of the day, he's eventually got to. I'm not even convinced it's a jump shot at this point. Simply,
no.
it's his aggressiveness, his demeanor, and maybe it is Joel Embiid. Maybe Joel Embiid somehow gets into Ben Simmons' mind. I don't know what's going on there. But my main thing with Ben Simmons is like, you're mad that the team isn't built around you. But the only reason that the team isn't built around you, because as Joel Embiid snapped back, it is kind of built around Ben Simmons in reality. Joel Embiid can play anywhere on the floor on offense in reality. Yeah. But the thing about Ben Simmons, it's like, if you want to be the number one, then play like the number one. Joel Embiid doesn't come out and defer to Ben Simmons because Joel Embiid knows he's that guy. Ben Simmons, you have to have the confidence to be better than Joel Embiid in order to have a better situation than Joel Embiid. And that's what it comes down to. You look at them head to head, and I can't help but do that because they're both supposed to be the superstars on this team. One has taken Philadelphia's criticism and has become an MVP candidate, and the other has taken the criticism and totally just fallen apart offensively. And, I defended Ben Simmons all of last season. I was like, 14, 15 points, that's all we need from him. We don't need to see him step out of his element. And then we get to the playoffs and it's 5 points, 0 shots in the fourth quarter. I think he took 1 the entire series in the fourth quarter, passing out of dunks, not attacking the rim, and then free throws. That's the easiest part of the game is free throws, right? And as a guy that wants to be a point guard, you can't shoot like that. That can't be part of your game. I've always thought if Ben Simmons had a floater in the middle of the lane, I mean, he would be unstoppable, literally unstoppable. But it's all, to me, it's all mental. And, the biggest conundrum of all of this is what you mentioned earlier, is that I do believe at some point, I don't know what it'll take for him to click in his mental state to finally get through to him and him understand that he has to do this to be good in the NBA. It's going to happen eventually, and it's not going to be in Philadelphia. And then everybody will come back and, point the finger at Philly. It's all Philadelphia's fault. But in reality, change of scenery might be what he needs to spark that, right?
Yeah, that definitely always helps. But I mean, I still just question Ben's want. I mean, you said it like this. Yeah. Like I've never been this type of person that's. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice for having Ben to be like a Steph Curry or Damian Lillard. Like we all would like that. But I think that's just too far fetched. I think what you said is just stuff that is. I think it's feasible to do. Like I don't see why you can't drive to the paint at will with the 6'10" body that you have and the speed that you have as well. Even you mentioned a floater. I mean. Heck, a fadeaway. I've seen him with a fadeaway before, like a little mid-range fadeaway game. Especially like when you got like point guards that are shorter than you. Guard
me, man.
Right? Like we've seen him go. We've seen him post up, right? But a little fadeaway wouldn't hurt either. But to your point with what Joel Embiid said about and envision of how team building works, dude. Like, are you serious? And the fact that, look, we did make that mistake in signing Al Horford, right, to that ridiculous contract for Ben.
Yeah. Jimmy
Butler, to me, the Jimmy Butler not being in Philadelphia still hurts me to this day because I saw the chemistry between Jimmy and Joel. And Ben, what? You didn't like that he would call you out? He would ask you to shoot the three? Like, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I do think that we shot ourselves in the foot by not doing everything possible to make Jimmy happy to keep him here. I know that Ben's younger, but I would so much rather build that team around Jimmy Butler because it's a mentality, and it's a mentality that fits with this city, right? And it definitely does hurt. But I mean, for Ben Simmons right now, I hear what you're saying. Like, I honestly, Scotty, I don't know if Ben Simmons can be that player. I don't know if he can be that player because I'm seeing the mental makeup. It's coming out because he's always been like this to himself player. He never said too much stuff, but now this offseason, he's saying it to everyone. Yeah, all these rumors that are coming out. So I listen. I made the prediction that after this max contract is done, he will not make the same amount of money in his NBA career. I've gone that far saying that simply because of Ben Simmons' drive. I don't think it's there. I think, like you said earlier, I think Ben Simmons enjoys the lifestyle of an NBA star instead of enjoying being an NBA star. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. And, you see it as soon as the season ends, he's not sweating, a loss in the second round. He's out buying multi-million-dollar cars and multi-million-dollar cribs, And I'm not right. And I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and criticize guys for spending their money and doing whatever they want in the off season. But it just almost, after hearing everything that he said and how he doesn't want to come back and play in front of Philadelphia, which, mind you, I'm not playing into that narrative that we ran him out of town. Like, we didn't do that. If you watch the playoffs, if you watch the crowd that was at the games, the dedicated fans that are at the games, they were cheering for Ben Simmons. They were even motioning how to shoot free throws to Ben Simmons. They were trying to help this man. I'm not falling into that narrative. If you underperform, if you underachieve, you're going to get criticized. And that's in any major sports city. If the Lakers did get criticized in LA for losing in the first or second round last season. So it doesn't matter what major city you go to. And, Shaq, a Hall of Famer, had said this as well. He's played in LA. He's played in Boston. He's played in even Cleveland, Miami. None of those cities, none of those fan bases are dealing with that. They're not dealing with the excuses. They're not dealing with you only worried about, the offseason or the off the court stuff. They're not doing that. They're not dealing with it. And Philly just always has to get this bad rep. You know what I mean? People, before all of this broke down, everybody was talking about how bad Ben Simmons was, right? The national media perspective was telling us how bad our player is and that he's not an all-star. He's not a superstar. But then when he requests a trade out of Philadelphia and we're upset because he underperformed and didn't perform like a superstar in the playoffs, we're not allowed to say it. Only everybody else can, because now we're the driving force that drove Ben Simmons out of Philadelphia. No. And he can blame Joel Embiid's comments after the game. He wanted Jimmy Butler off the team because of it. And look, at the first time Joel Embiid throws any hint of criticism towards Ben Simmons, and he won't even talk to him. And that's my final note on Ben Simmons is, outside of just basketball, these guys have spent a lot of time together the last couple of years between Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, even Furkan Korkmaz, some of those guys on the bench, Shake Milton. These guys have been with this guy for how many years now, calling him a brother, sticking up for him to the media. Danny Green sticking up for him against the Philly fans. Dwight Howard sticking up for him against the Philly fans. And he turns his back completely on all of those guys. Won't even let them fly out, give them a chance to talk to you. Right? Like a week after Joel Embiid comes out publicly and says that he loves playing with Ben Simmons throws out, this rumor. It's all Rich Paul as well. I'm interested to see how this all plays out with Rich Paul in the NBA, because this is a problem when you have a guy that has 4 guaranteed years left on his contract and he's refusing to play. That's not good for the NBA. It's not good for, athletes. What stops players from coming out of college and demanding trades at this point, saying they won't play if they get drafted to a city they don't like? Where does it stop? The NBA's got to put their foot on it and step in at some point, I feel like, because this can't play out like this. We don't need to have our hand forced because Ben Simmons played bad in the playoffs.
Yeah, but we don't ever see this from players like Ben. This is what like is so confusing to me. Like, I don't agree with a James Harden doing this, but I understand like why he does it. He's done everything he can for the city and the franchise that is the Houston Rockets. He's one of the best scorers of all time. He deserves to ask for a trade, and he'd do whatever the hell he wants. Ben Simmons hasn't done jack crap in the NBA for him to sit here and say, "Get me the hell out of this." Why? And the timing is absolutely terrible. After we lose that series to Atlanta Hawks, which I will say to my death that we should have never lost that series to the Atlanta Hawks. And yet you, after that series, instead of taking care of it like Michael Jordan did after losing all those series to the bad boy Pistons, Michael went back to the gym. He's like, I'm not losing to those damn Pistons again. What does Ben Simmons do? He's out. And again, like you said, he's allowed to do whatever the hell he wants. But again, it's the context, right? You lose to the series against the Atlanta Hawks. You were a big reason why we lost that series. Your ass should, you know what? It's not his ass should be in the gym. His ass should be with his teammates in the gym.
Yeah.
Joel, what do we do? How do we beat the Hawks? Toby, what do we do? How do we beat the Hawks? Let's work on this. Let's work on nothing. He's out working out by himself, putting out videos up on Chris Johnson's Instagram. He's just trying to look good. And it's the same thing. Remember the 42-point game? Oh, that was lovely. He was like 15 of 18 from the line. He was looking like LeBron James out there. But what was it for? To get his ass into the All-Star game so he could tell everyone, I'm a 3-time All-Star. All right, look at the stats. Look at what stats, man. We don't have any rings. That's the only stat that matters.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, man. He doesn't want it, man. And as far as requesting a trade, you're demanding a trade, but nobody wants you. Like nobody's offering what should be offered to get you. So like, what does that tell you? You would think something would knock his ego down, but instead of that, instead of him just kind of sucking it up, coming out and playing, getting his trade value up, he says that's not his job to improve his trade value. Whose job is it?
Ben is literally like the guy in the club, right? He's all jacked, right? He's yoked. He's got Givenchy. He's got all this designer stuff on, but no girl wants him because he's D-Ben. It's like what Ben is right now.
Seriously, man, it's embarrassing. I do agree. I just want it to be over. What I'm hoping is that and we'll get into this now, but I'm hoping that the Sixers can play good enough to kind of subside it for a little bit, and we can just maybe talk about how the Sixers are playing. Maybe Maxey can surprise some people and really play out of his mind. I don't know what it would take, but let's get into the actual Sixers roster that's actually in camp, actually going to play. Who
wants to play right now?
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about how Joel Embiid can get better as a player, especially coming out of an MVP caliber season. What would you point to as the number one starting point for Joel Embiid to improve this offseason? Obviously, the offseason's over, so we're just hoping to see it. What would you point to as far as what he needed to do to get to an even higher level?
I'll start by saying this. I think that Joel's offensive game is as good as is going to get. It can get improved upon. I think every player can improve upon.
Yeah.
But I think for what Joel, the main thing for me and just what I saw in that Atlanta series, I think he just needs trust with his guys. I think a lot of those turnovers and what you saw was a guy out there trying to play Superman. And Atlanta and McMillan, we need to really give them credit because they had a great game plan that whole series.
Yeah.
But when you got Toby's not playing the best in that series, we need to give Seth credit because Seth was balling out in that series. No Danny Green hurt us as well, which we haven't talked about enough. And then Ben, we just talked about. But Joel was out there just feeling like he needed to do everything. He's got the bum knee. So obviously staying healthy is number one for Joel.
Yeah.
But I think him trusting the players that he has around him, I think that's going to help him because the thing is that I think he played good in the playoffs. The turnovers are going to kill us. They're just flat out going to kill us. You can't
especially
play
at the time in the game.
Exactly. So I think to me that's the one thing I need for him to work on. But I think that this Ben Simmons, I think people are looking at the Ben Simmons situation thinking like, we're done, we're screwed. I'm actually kind of excited about it because I think what we're going to see, Scott, I think we're going to see a team that's going to come together and they're going to play for each other. It's going to be that band of brothers out there. And dude, that gets me fired up because I love seeing that type of stuff because now, dude, they got the chip on the shoulder. They're the underdogs. Yeah. And come on, man, this is Philadelphia. We love the underdog story. So I think what we're going to see is this team play for each other. And I don't know how far it'll get them in the playoffs, but I think that in the regular season, it'll keep them in the playoffs. We'll talk about where they'll finish in the Eastern Conference. But I think they're going to be a team in the playoffs that people are going to sleep on. But I think they're going to be that little underdog, and I love it. But we'll see what this makeup's going to be with the Sixers next season.
Yeah. So I'll kind of follow up on that. I'm a big Tyrese Maxey guy, and I know people have battled me on Twitter, just overhyping him, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out this season. But what I see, just from what I saw last year from Tyrese Maxey, what I saw in the playoffs, to I'm taking Summer League with a grain of salt, of course, but also the work ethic and what he's been working on. And the difference between Tyrese Maxey and Ben Simmons is you see him implement it in game. So Ben Simmons will post all these videos of him hitting jump shots. Tyrese Maxey has been working on the step back three, and he was showcasing it in the summer league, and he's continued working on it all the way through training camp. We've seen videos from training camp in their scrimmages. He's hitting step back pull-ups. Just that element. I feel like, Ben Simmons, it's going to hurt defensively. I know that. I know we're not going to be as strong defensively, especially on the perimeter. What Joel Embiid can do to help improve is just step up his agility on the defensive end, his ability to move around, because that's going to be huge now without a guy like Ben Simmons there. You hope that Matisse Thybulle will get more minutes, be that perimeter lockdown guy. He's got to show us that he can be consistent on offense and at least be a threat. But Joel Embiid guarding the pick and roll, stepping up on offensive players when they go through screens. Stuff like that is going to be key this year. But what I'm looking at, with Tyrese Maxey on the offensive end is just a guy that can run the pick and roll with Joel Embiid. He can even run it with Tobias Harris. I look at a team like the Atlanta Hawks, what did they do that entire series? They ran Trae Young off a screen. Clint Capella dives to the basket, and it was there all day. Now you're talking about Tyrese Maxey, who is not Trae Young. I understand that. But you're looking at Joel Embiid, who is 3-4 times the player that Clint Capella is on the offensive end. And all it's going to do is create easier situations for Joel Embiid. I think it's going to give him more paint opportunities where he can actually show his dominance. Too many times last season, I know he said he wants to shoot more threes. I think he bails teams out with doing that, honestly. I know it takes a lot more energy out of him, and you do want him to get those easy mid-range jump shots. And I'm cool with, 3 or 4 threes a game, about what he was shooting last year. But I want to see him in the paint full time. I think he can just dominate in there. And obviously you want him to use his skill, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him to just dive down to the rim, especially with Ben Simmons off the floor, who's when he's in that dunker spot, he takes the baseline away, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have that anymore. You can space the floor out. Tyrese Maxey can run the pick and roll, use Joel Embiid as a screener, goes around the pick and roll. He has the teardrop. He has the floater. He has a mid-range jump shot. He can step back to the three. He's not afraid to shoot it. That's a huge difference to me on an offensive scale. Just with your starting lineup, obviously. What I worry about is facilitation. That's what I'm really worried about with losing Ben Simmons there. But as far as this team goes, I think, like you said, they can still compete. They're going to be in that playoff contention. We'll talk about where they actually rank, but I actually have them in a similar spot to where I feel like I'd have them even if they had Ben Simmons. And part of me feels like, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but I feel like when playoffs come, it's going to be a lot harder to scheme against Tyrese Maxey on the offensive end than it will be to scheme against Ben Simmons on the offensive end that does not attack the paint at all.
That is very true. That is very true. What I will say about Tyrese Maxey, because I hear it. I mean, I even hear it with my girl's dad. He's like one of the biggest Tyrese Maxey stands. And all I keep hearing is Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese. I hear it all. I think my expectations for Tyrese is a little smaller than what people have for Tyrese Maxey. I'm just looking for him to take that next step in his game. I think a lot of people are looking for him to be the replacement for Ben, which I think is asking too much for a second-year player. But when we look at last season, I mean, obviously he didn't see a lot of time, right? He averaged like 15 minutes last season a game, and he averaged 8 points a game as well. For me, obviously, those are two stats I expect to go up for Tyrese Maxey. And I just want to see him, improve upon his game. You mentioned how he's going to work on that pick and roll. That jump shot is really something we didn't see too often. If he had an open look, he would take that shot. But that we really didn't see too much of that three-point shot from Tyrese. How's he going to look at that? I mean, we just dealt with 4 years of a point guard who just refused to shoot from the three-point line. So it would be very nice to have a threat from that position to shoot from the three. So I'm just looking for Tyrese to take that next step in his game as a guy who was the 20th overall pick of the 2020 NBA draft. So that's what I'm looking for him. For people who are looking for him to be AI, maybe let's just slow our roll a little bit. But no, I see why we're excited
with that. Yeah.
The dude's got the speed. Dude's got what it takes to play, and he's got the right mentality to play in this league as well. But we do need to take the right steps here. I think the one person people are sleeping on, and I know this is a lot to ask for, but I'm really hoping he can take the next step because I know he has it in him, is Shake Milton. Now, I remember last year, to start the season, he looked good. I mean, we were calling him Lou Will 2.0 at times, right?
Man
But then
of the year, right?
right, we hit that first Western Conference road trip, and he got hurt against the Kings. He missed like 2 weeks, and he wasn't the same after that.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that NBA defenses started figuring out and adjusting to his game, but he hit a wall last year. And in 2020, we saw something similar, or 2019, we saw something. No, 2020. Yes, I'm sorry. 2020, we saw something similar before the lockout. We came back in the bubble. He really wasn't the same player. So can Shake Milton take this? It's right here for him. It's literally right here for him. If he plays his capability, he can be that. Replacing Ben Simmons, I think for me, you said the ball facilitating. For me, what I worry more is about the defense because he leads charge on the defense. We were the best defensive team last year in the NBA because of the way Ben Simmons led the team. So that's really my concern about without having Ben Simmons. But the guard play should be interesting. And tonight, actually, I want to see if Jaden Springer can actually be a contributor in the rotation, at least in the regular season. From what I see, he's a guy who can facilitate and play some defense. Sounds a little similar to Ben Simmons. Obviously he's not doing it to the level that Ben Simmons was doing it, but I'm really curious what Jaden Springer can do. But you got some point guards here, or you got some guards here who have some moxie, have something to prove, and that's always a good thing to have.
Yeah, and to your point, I love that you brought up Shake Milton, and you can even throw Matisse Thybulle in there with guys that going to have to somewhat take up part of what Ben Simmons, leaves on the table, right? Like, it's not just going to be Maxey that steps into the starting point guard role and takes all of Ben Simmons, of what he did and his responsibilities. Shake Milton is going to have to handle the ball. Who's going to be that second unit guy? He's going to have to be that guy, right? Seth Curry's going to have to handle the ball more. He's going to have to do some playmaking. But I get it. On the defensive end, that's where it completely lacks. Because if you're looking at a starting lineup, let's say it's Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, and then Danny Green at the small forward, where's your perimeter defense? Now, I know Maxey's lanky. He's not far enough into his development that he's going to be a lockdown defender or a difference maker on the defensive end. I don't believe that. Seth Curry's he's never been a guy on defense. He's an offensive threat. So that's where I'm looking at Matisse Thybulle and his development and what he needs to do, kind of what he did on the Olympic team for Australia. He showed a lot of shots. And it's just simply taking the shot, right? But he was actually hitting shots in the Olympics, which was great to see. And you hope that getting the medal with Australia, getting a larger role with Australia and getting more playing time, you hope that it boosts his confidence. Yep. Which, to another point about Ben Simmons, I was so surprised to see him not go play with Australia and get that experience.
I'm not surprised. Did you watch Matisse Thybulle's vlogs?
No. I watched one of them at the beginning.
So I would recommend watching it because it's very telling. So it's the thing. So I think that by Matisse playing with the Australian team, it benefited, and I think it actually escalated his development as well. Being able to play with some of those NBA vets, the style of play that they play with Australia, I think those are things he can translate here to Philadelphia. But then when I watch the interaction with the Australian team, even Tease with some of the stars there's no way Ben Simmons would fit in this locker. This is a group of guys who literally have to work for everything. I mean, you look at Patty Mills and Joe Ingles, the leader of that Aussie team. Those guys were I'm not sure if they were drafted or undrafted, but they were not first-round picks, essentially.
Yeah.
And those guys had to battle within the league to earn those minutes, and you're seeing what they are now. Ben is here. He gets everything handed to him as well. He would never fit in that Aussie locker room. So I would have loved to see Ben Simmons in there, but his mentality would have not fit in there. While everyone is hanging out, I'm talking about the off team, while everyone's hanging out, Ben would have been like in his room, like hitting up Maya Ham or whatever, playing video games. Yeah. It wouldn't have worked. It just wouldn't have worked.
No, I tend to agree with you, in retrospect, especially. But yeah, it was good to see Matisse, kind of get groomed with that group. Joe Ingles, you mentioned, Patty Mills. Those are good guys to learn from. They're very experienced. They've been on good teams in the NBA as well. So you just hope, Matisse Thybulle, like I said, the thing that I also liked about him is, he's actually driving to the lane now. He's getting out on fast breaks. Doc Rivers mentioned he loves Matisse Thybulle's speed, Whenever you see those rebounds, just take off, get easy layups, get easy dunks. He's a guy that can fly around. So you just hope that he gets a little more confident on the offensive end to where he can get 20-plus minutes a game and be that lockdown defender that comes off the bench for you.
Yeah, and I think that he's also had a lot of valuable experience playing in the 2020 playoffs. Playing in the playoffs last year, the knockout or the medal games that he played in with Australia as well. We didn't talk about the JJ Redick podcast interview that he had because it was really telling as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
But even him talking about the foul that no one really killed him for.
Yeah.
Those are things that he is going to learn. He's going to learn from, and he's going to be a better player this year. Now he's going to go into his third season, and we're expecting the Sixers to make the playoffs again. That'd be his third year being in the playoffs. That's very valuable, and I do think he's going to be a star 3-and-D guy in this league. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. He's you think about the 3-and-D guys over the years. The Bruce Bowens of the world, going all the way back to the Spurs. He can be better than that, right? He's more athletic. He's more explosive in the air, excuse me. So I'm looking for him to be a crucial contributor this year, right? Like he definitely needs to take a step, and I don't see any reason why he can't. And just to your point on that JJ Redick podcast, which is, by the way, one of the best NBA player podcasts, NBA podcasts in general. So definitely check that out if you guys haven't already.
Retire, man.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be on it this year, and it's going to be it's always great content with JJ Redick. He's very good at hosting his own show and doing his thing there. So shout out to him. But just to see the accountability that Matisse Thybulle had on that show, I can just relate everything back to Ben Simmons. It's like that is not something he would say, and he was even defending Ben Simmons right there in that point. Saying that the game was on him. You would just never see that from a guy like Ben Simmons, which. You got to commend Matisse Thybulle. He's got the right mindset, in his head there, and that's the reason I love Tyrese Maxey as well. Like you said earlier, the mentality comes from the pedigree of Kentucky. That he was always in the spotlight at Kentucky. It didn't drop off or rise up when he got to Philadelphia, so that's always a plus.
Guard you, man.
Yeah, guard you. You got it, man. We've seen some great guards come out of Kentucky, so hopefully he can be one of them. They called him a steal in the draft. You hope that he can live up to being a steal in the draft at 21st pick. Let's get into some of these power rankings. Let's get into the Eastern Conference first. I want to get into. Do you want to start from the bottom and go, maybe 8 up, or do you want to go 1 to 8?
We can go 1 to 8.
All right, let's dig into it. So I'll let you know my number 1 seed first, and then we can kind of just go back and forth through them.
Okay.
So number 1 seed. Feel like it's an obvious one. Brooklyn Nets. I got the Brooklyn Nets number 1. Some people may argue with that. Milwaukee Bucks, I get it. They just won the championship. Brooklyn Nets, some of the people that they added, Paul Millsap, just another, former all-star player, definitely knows the game very well. Patty Mills is huge. He brings that championship pedigree from San Antonio, leadership. Man. They also get LaMarcus Aldridge back, who somehow came back from the injury that I thought ended his career. And then they picked up a rough and tough guy in James Johnson there. But the biggest thing is, they get a fully healthy James Harden with a full, off season with that team. Thing about the Nets is what the hell is going on with Kyrie Irving, right? And we won't get into like vaccination or anything like that on the show here. But what is going to happen with Kyrie Irving? Is he just going to play away games? I could see him even retiring if they really try to force him to get vaccinated to come back and play. That's my number 1. I got the Brooklyn Nets. I think KD, they don't miss a beat even without Kyrie Irving, in my opinion. I think him and James Harden with that supporting cast is enough to get the 1 seed. How do you feel about the number 1 seed? Which way would you go here?
Nah, I agree. I think that they're like about chip on your shoulder. I think they're going to come into this season like just absolutely playing angry basketball. Yeah. What happened against Milwaukee, man, it was there for them, and it was tough for them last year. I mean, they had to deal with all the injuries with their big 3. Yeah. This year they're going to go all in on it. I think that they will finish as the number 1 seed this year. I mean, Doc came in at the right situation at the right time. We had the players, we had the team. He put in his leadership, and that's kind of what got us to being number 1 seed last year. But now I think Brooklyn is going to they're on a mission this year. I don't know if they win this year, but they're on a mission for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, last year, leaves a sour taste in their mouth. It was right there.
Yeah.
Like if you just survive that game against Milwaukee, then you get, James Harden back the next series, potentially get Kyrie Irving back the next series. And you just never got to see them all together in reality. They didn't get many games where the big three were there together. And ultimately it came back to bite them. Number 2, I'm going to go Milwaukee Bucks, the reigning champs. I love the Milwaukee Bucks. I love the step that Giannis took last year in the playoffs. He put everything to rest as far as him getting shut down in the playoffs, him, almost like the Ben Simmons effect, but to a higher degree for Giannis, just because you expect so much from him. None of that. He was the MVP all the way throughout the playoffs, got the Heat out of there, went on to the Brooklyn Nets, and then on to, you know what I mean? So down the line. And that's what was really incredible about that whole, the way that all played out. Atlanta Hawks, he went through them and then on to Phoenix and got it done there. They added they lost PJ Tucker, added George Hill, Rodney Hood. So just some marginal players there. Number 2 for you, who do you got?
I'm going to agree with you there with the Bucks again. I think they're good. Listen, they're not going to miss a step. I think Giannis is going to be one of those generational stars in this league. They're going to try to go for the repeat. I think it's going to be too tough for them. But I think they play in the easiest division in basketball as well. But I think that they'll finish as that number 2 seed, barring any injuries, of course.
Yeah. Injuries is always the huge thing, and those are just things you can't account for. Right. Somebody said to me, after this past season, because we were talking about injury prone, not injury prone, and somebody said, everybody is injury prone, man. Because you saw literally so many stars go down last season, whether it was LeBron, AD, you saw Chris Paul go down at one point. Who was a big one? There was a huge one. Jamal Murray was injured last offseason. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, down the line, you know the deal. Even Giannis had that crazy spill when he, twisted his knee in the one game, and it just looked disgusting. But it's all injury dependent. That's what's crazy about it. I'll let you go first with number 3. Who do you got at the number 3 seed?
I like the Heat. Honestly, I like what they did this offseason. I think that if they can all stay healthy as well, I really do like the Miami. They got their version of a big 3 now, and we'll see if Kyle Lowry can be that complement to Jimmy Butler. But I mean, you know how I feel about Jimmy, and they got P. Tucker there as well. So I think the Heat here will have a bounce back season. We'll see how they finish in the playoffs, but I think they're gonna be a dangerous team. I'm curious though, what are they gonna get from Tyler Hero? Is Tyler done, or is he just having a season? It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting. I have the Miami Heat number 3 as well, so I'm in agreement with you. What do you think the ceiling is for the Miami Heat? Like, do you think they could actually win the NBA championship, or do they have like a finals chance, or do you think that they could win the whole thing?
I mean, I think when you got Jimmy and Spoels there, I think there's absolutely an opportunity there. Bam Adebayo as well. We'll talk about him a little bit, but he's definitely one of the best centers that we have in this league as well. And
very underrated.
And Kyle's won a championship as well. So I definitely would say that they are a title contender this season. The East is definitely, as we're looking at these power rankings, I think the East is definitely tougher than the Western Conference this season. It's been a while since I've been able to say that. But the East is going to be tough this year. And it doesn't help our Sixers.
I know. And that's why, we'll get to it right now, I guess. But, the Sixers, that's why I felt like last year was such a terrible loss in the second round, because you look at the teams that were left. It was a lot of inexperienced teams. There was no team that had been there before that was left. And that's your most opportune time to go and grab that ring, is when no matter who wins, you would be the first one, to ever win a ring out of those teams. You didn't see the Lakers there. You didn't see those, strongholds at the top this year. And they kind of just blew it. But number 4, I do have the Philadelphia 76ers right behind the Miami Heat. You mentioned PJ Tucker, adding him to the fold with the Miami Heat. It's kind of what, I've been wanting from the Sixers in the offseason for a while, just adding like a tough guy, right? Mike Scott used to be that grungy, he could hit a 3 and kind of rough somebody up. he's not that guy anymore. He's just simply not good enough. But you see guys like Jay Crowder, guys like PJ Tucker, Torrey Craig, these guys that can hit a three, but also just get really grimy on the defensive end. KD obviously torched PJ Tucker, but he was there all the way. And that's all you can ask, just to get those little wins within the game. And those are the kind of guys that get you there. But I do have the Sixers at number 4. What I mean by number 4 in this situation is strictly where I think they'll stand as far as chances once we get to the playoffs. I don't know that the Sixers will get the 4th seed just because we got some guys that are going to go through some growing pains. We got some guys that need to develop in season and build that chemistry together. But as far as them at their peak and what I expect from the Sixers, I do expect them at a 4 seed level. I would still put those other 3 teams above them. And this is not calculating in a return for Ben Simmons either, by the way. So I just want to put that on the table as well. But you talk about what the Sixers did in the offseason. They added Andre Drummond, Georges Niang, who's a great 3-point shooter. We'll see how he fits into the rotation there as like a stretch 4. But Andre Drummond, is that an upgrade from Dwight Howard? I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I would say so. I think that he's more polished as an offensive player. I think that we're losing Dwight's leadership. I don't know. I don't really know if Andre can really feel that. But offensively, I think we upgraded there. I mean, if Ben Simmons were here, I would have said this team is an improved team from what we saw last year, because I do like Niang over Mike Scott, and I do like Drummond over Howard. But I mean, as much as we are, so fed up with Ben Simmons, I mean, we do miss the ball facilitating and the defense that was very important what we were doing last year. So that's definitely going to hurt us a little bit.
Definitely. Who do you got it for?
I actually have the Atlanta Hawks at 4. I do think that they're going to build off of what they did last year, and I think they're going to have a better regular season, and I think that will get them up to the 4th seed, one better than what they were able to do last year.
Okay, yeah, I can get down with that. Just because, to your point, they did add some guys, Georges Niang, DeLon Wright. But my main thing, is they get some guys back. Like, they didn't have Cam Reddish against the Sixers. They didn't have DeAndre Hunter at all against the Sixers. And getting
Duke,
those,
Scotty.
What was that?
Here comes a Duke fan, Scotty.
Yeah, you already know Cam Reddish. Hey, I think it was against Milwaukee, it was against Milwaukee. He had a big game in that Eastern Conference Finals. He looked a little gassed. I think he was out of shape, but he can score the lights out. Sure. And you look at him surrounded by guys like a guy like Kevin Huerter that just torched the Sixers. You put him beside a guy, like Bogdanovich, and then you throw in a guy like Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter that can also hit threes and is a lockdown defender as well. So you look at like DeAndre Hunter, for instance, if he would have been in that Sixers series, he would have had the duties of guarding, either a Ben Simmons or a Tobias Harris. He could have given Tobias Harris even more fits in that series, in my opinion. So I'm with you on the Hawks. Maybe I'm even, underselling them a bit. I do have them right there at the 5 seed. I get what you're saying. The, Trae Young in that pick and roll, I know they're changing the rules. He won't get to the free throw line as much. This guy just hits shots. He's a scorer. He can hit it from anywhere on the court. He has the floater that is literally unstoppable. By the way, the floater is like my favorite shot in the game of basketball, just because it is once you master it, it's like a hook shot. It's like Kareem's sky hook. Once you master those type of shots, they're unguardable. You can't stop them. So that's why I really do appreciate the floater. But yeah, I'm with you on the Hawks. I do love what they're doing there. They're young. They're only going to get better. John Collins, they brought back, which he had a great playoff run there. And, John Collins was a guy that he's not that good. Like, why is he overperforming against the Sixers? He comes out, he does it against the Bucks as well, keeps them in that series. So it'll be interesting to see the Hawks with a full season under Nate McMillan, who, after he came in halfway through the season, they were the team in the East with the best record from that start break. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Who do you got at 6? Or who do you got at 5? Excuse me.
Well, I do have the Sixers at 5. I think the Hawks and the Sixers will be very close. I think the Hawks will win by like 1 or 2 games.
It'll be interesting
That
to see those matchups throughout the season.
Oh, you already know I circled that like a couple times on my calendar when we play the Hawks, but I do have the Sixers there at 5. Look, they're still going to be a good team, despite not having Ben Simmons this year. But to be the number 1 seed again is going to be very tough for them to kind of accomplish, especially when the Nets, the Bucks, and the Heat improve on their teams. I don't know what's going to happen with Ben Simmons, and that's also something that we need to keep in mind. Is he going to play? When will he come back? And when he comes back, what will they look like? We'll even play him, right? These are that or if he gets traded, what is the package that we get back for him? So there's a lot of things to consider there with Ben Simmons. But as of right now, I got the Sixers finishing as the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and the Ben Simmons thing, it kind of makes them just a wild card, right?
Right.
You can undersell them, you can overhype them, but in reality, we really don't know what they're going to look like because, the defensive side of the ball, we've hit on it several times this show. Defense and facilitation, those are the things that Ben Simmons are best at, and those are the things that he made the biggest contribution in. You look at some of the games, he did have multiple double-digit assist games in the playoffs. That is one thing that he did excel and didn't lose. And what do you get out of that, once you lose that? My hopes is that we will have some guards that can score, they can drive the lane, and hopefully that opens up some shooting around the court. But that's me hoping for the best, right? Like that's not what necessarily will happen. And I think that's what makes the Sixers a wild card. So 4 or 5 seed, I think it's interchangeable. I'm not going to argue with you there. Number 6, I have the Boston Celtics.
Wow.
And the reason I have the Boston Celtics there is because they were without Jaylen Brown last postseason. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, as much as I hate the Celtics, man, I'm a Duke guy. Jason Tatum, I will never get over that. Like there's no part of me that will ever get over taking Markelle Fultz. I get it was the consensus pick. The fact that we traded another first-round pick just to not take Jason Tatum really blows my mind. Just because I follow college basketball as close as I can. I knew Jason Tatum's skill set was going to just flourish in the NBA. He's built for the NBA. Right. His skill set was better built for the NBA than it was for college basketball in reality. And I'm never going to get over what he's been able to accomplish in the NBA and what it could have been. Man. He's the perfect piece for this Sixers team, even with Ben Simmons. I mean, my goodness.
I think we were just looking at it different back then. I think we were just looking for that guy to complement Ben and Joel instead of just thinking about what was the best player in general. Imagine him with Joel right now. Yeah, man, it would have been wild.
You just think about it. He's everything that we're trying to get. Even a Michael Porter Jr., who we skipped over. These are guys that we're just like begging to trade Ben Simmons for right now, right? Like just that type of player. They added Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, Al Horford. They got Enes Kanter back as well. They added some pieces in there. They were really lacking like a down-low presence. That's why they would never stand a chance against the Sixers last season. But I do, with a healthy team, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown in there, they should be very good defensively. You add Josh Richardson. He's a pretty good defensive player, obviously lacks on the offensive end. And then Dennis Schroeder, I think, really adds an element that kind of Kemba Walker. I think he's going to be a little bit better than Kemba as far as, Kemba's health status really held him back. But I think Boston at number 6. Who do you got?
So a lot of people have been buying the hype of one team. I am buying it, but I'm not that high on it. So I do have the Bulls here at 6. I do think they really added some good pieces onto this roster. I think to me, what it's going to come down to how these guys mesh and LaVine. LaVine is now the head horse of a good team. LaVine has never done this in his career. I'm curious to see how that works, but the one thing I do think that's going to make it all work is Billy Donovan. I do think very highly of Billy Donovan. The guy can get it done in college. The guy can get it done in the NBA. Last year, it was kind of a mess. And I could be biting myself at the end of the season with this, but as of right now, I really do like what the Bulls did with that roster, and I got them as the 6th seed going into this season.
That's interesting, and I think, as we get down through these lower seeds, that's where we'll finally start to see the differences. Number 7 for me, I have the Indiana Pacers, actually. So I'm really just looking at them getting T.J. Warren and Karis LeVert back to go with Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, and then Domantas Sabonis. I think they just have a very well-coached team there. They really have players that complement themselves well, and they all work hard. That's kind of what I like about that whole team. They're kind of all underdogs. Domantas Sabonis does not get the credit that he should get for the level that he plays at. And then as well as guys like Karis LeVert, who's dealt with injuries. He's dealt with,
life-ending stuff or life-ending
problems, right? And T.J. Warren, a guy that was, kind of counted out until the bubble where he really made his name back up. So I'm looking at the Indiana Pacers. Obviously, you get down into this territory. These are all teams that I could also see. They would be in the play-in tournament, obviously. So, give or take, these guys in this spot, but I do have the Pacers at number 7.
I got your Celtics on the way you had them at 6. Okay. I got them at 7 here. I'm just curious about Brad Stevens not being there, and I'm losing the name of the coach of the Boston Celtics now. But that's really the main question.
Now that you say that, I don't remember who got the job.
Right? We all remember what's his name was. But
look it up while you're talking.
And that was an interesting move, putting Brad Stevens into the front office. But I think, to me, it's going to come down to Jalen and Tatum taking this team to where it needs to go. They still think that they are a team that can compete in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they are there yet, but we'll see what the dynamic is. Al's going to go back to Boston, where he seemed to be comfortable there, and he had a year off. He had a year off to get his body right. So
watch him come out and play spectacular for the Celtics, man. Just watch.
We already know they don't like Philly, so it would make sense. It definitely would make sense. But I got Boston there at number 7.
So Celtics' new head coach is Ime Udoka. So the assistant coach, I believe he came from Brooklyn. He's been around. He played for San Antonio in the past. So he's got a little bit of experience. I believe he was a coach on the assistant staff with Greg Popovich as well in San Antonio. So he's definitely done his due diligence, and he has a good plethora of experience there. Number 8 for me, and once again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm going the New York Knicks. Last year, what were the Knicks? 5 or 6 seed?
They were the 4 seed.
They were the 4 seed, and the Hawks were the 5 seed. I got you. So I got them taking a little bit of a step down this year. They were a great defensive team last year. Once they got to the playoffs, you really started to see the talent difference, especially offensively. What's going to be key for them? I know they added Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier. What's going to be key for them is going to be the growth and development of another Duke guy, RJ Barrett. If he can play up to that number 3 pick status that he was in that draft with Zion and Ja Morant, they can really take another step. They may be able to get a higher seed just with that defensive prowess. Also got Derrick Rose there as well. So you got a nice point guard combo with Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose. They kind of give you some different looks there. And then they're still bringing back, Tom Thibodeau and that defensive mindset. So I do have the Knicks there. Hopefully Julius Randle, maybe he can continue to, climb or at least stay at the same level that won him the most improved player as well.
Yeah, this was tough for me as well. I'm gonna go with the Charlotte Hornets here at number 8. I think it's gonna be the year of the buzz. LaMelo came out last season, and he obviously got hurt midway through, but the dude is legit. I think he's one of the future stars of this league. Yeah. He's wild, and I think I think just by getting him back, they're improving upon. But I also did like getting Kelly Oubre there, a veteran guy. I'm already seeing some of the clips. He's already letting his veteran presence know within that organization. And I think they'll be a surprise team, and they'll be an 8th seed going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick. They were right outside of the playoffs last season. That was without, LaMelo for, I believe, like half a season. So, to see them come back, they'll have Terry Rozier there. They'll have LaMelo. They'll have Gordon Hayward. Got guys like DJ Washington, Miles Bridges that can take that next step, hopefully. That could propel them to the 8th seed. As far as play-ins or 9 and 10 seeds, if we're going that far, just briefly, I do have the Chicago Bulls as right there, could get the 8th seed, could get the 7th seed. They're one of my teams. And then I also have the Charlotte Hornets as one of those teams that could, potentially grab the 8th seed or the 7th seed as well.
Yeah, I mean at 9 and 10 for me, I got at 9 I got Indiana, and then at 10 I got the Knicks. But I mean, I'm not saying I think Washington will be a playoff team, but I think that they got a little more depth this past off season.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I may have slept on Washington a bit. I don't know. It's hard for me to say they'll make the playoffs after losing Westbrook, but Spencer Dinwiddie is pretty good, and they added some other pieces there, so they are looking a little bit deeper. So I get what you're saying there. And
So
then
yeah, that's where I got.
another team that may, and it just shows you how deep the East actually is, but another team that could kind of get slept on as well as the Toronto Raptors that just always seem to put together a pretty good product of basketball, whether they're injured, beat up. But you do still have the Fred Van Fleets of the world, the Pascal Siakam's there, and they have a great coach in Nick Nurse. So they always have a chance as well, in my eyes, to make the playoffs there.
I'm curious what Scotty Barnes gonna look like with the Raptors.
Scotty Barnes, yes, that was the name that was slipping my mind. The rookie. It will be interesting to see how he fits in. They do really well with developing young talent. Oh my goodness, who's the one guy? I can't. Oh, Anobi, OG Anobi.
OG Anobi. Yep.
He's another really good young player. So off to the West, we'll kind of fly through these now. I know I've kept you a while now.
You're good, man.
So number 1 seed. I feel like this is an obvious one for me, but I'm going the LA Lakers here. Bringing back the experience of LeBron and AD, of course, but then you add in Russell Westbrook, Melo, Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Wayne Ellington, Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan, Malik Monk, Kendrick Nunn, Rajon Rondo, and then, of course, they lost Dennis Schroeder. But they just added nothing but skill, young guys with potential in Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn. And then you got guys with experience with Melo, Rondo, Westbrook. So I'm sold on the Lakers getting back to that status as long as they can stay healthy.
I'm not that high on the Lakers as everyone else is. I think at the number 1 seed, I'm going with Denver.
Okay. You surprised me with that one.
Just by getting Jamal Murray back, I think that's pretty much everything. But I think that they are a deeper team as well. I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to take that next step into his game as well. I really like the Nuggets this year. I think they're going to be a dangerous team this year.
Interesting, man, because I thought when you were going to go in a different direction, I was thinking maybe you would go Phoenix. I went Denver number 2, so I'm with you on the Denver hype train. I love what Denver does. I love Nikola Jokic. I know we get into this betting war with Embiid and Jokic. I love them both. They both have totally different styles of game at the center position, right. And they both max out their team's talent. So I love both of them. But you mentioned Michael Porter Jr. This is a guy that is 6'10", 6'9", 6'11", around that range of height, can shoot the ball from literally anywhere. People call you crazy for comparing him to a KD level scoring ability, but I truly see it. Why not? As long as he can stay healthy and keep improving. I don't know if he'll ever be able to do the rest of the game like KD does, but scoring at his height, it is uncanny. It's unstoppable when he's pulling up and he's actually has a jump shot. He's in the air, about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. So this guy, he's a star. They paid him like it. They gave him the extension. And then, like you said, getting Jamal Murray back, that's huge, right? He's a top 10 point guard in the NBA. That means something. And they significantly missed him throughout the playoffs last season. And they get him back. So I'm with you. I got the Denver Nuggets. If we're not even calculating, Nikola Jokic taking another step as well, right? We talked about Joel Embiid taking another step. Nikola Jokic can do that as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Denver plays out. Who do you got at number 2, man?
Number 2, I got the best regular season team in the Western Conference, and I think the Utah Jazz will go there.
Okay. I like that.
I don't know what they'll do in the playoffs, but I think just another year there. I think the most of Donovan Mitchell and that whole rookie of the year debate with Ben and him. I think that is fairly over. But yeah, I think Donovan is going to go on his tear again. I think Donovan could be an MVP candidate this year. I really think that highly of Mitchell, of Spida. So I got them at number 2.
Everything. Yeah, I'm with you on Mitchell. As much as I didn't like him during the regular season. I didn't like him, as far as that Ben and Donovan comparison. I can let that ride now, right? Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, he's a guy that can do everything. He plays good defense. He's got great size at the guard position. Number 3 for me, I do have the Phoenix Suns. They made the finals appearance. They didn't lose very much. They added JaVale McGee, Elfrid Payton, Landry Shamet, who we're both familiar with, and Chandler Hutchinson. We're able to bring back CP3. The big thing with Phoenix, man, is if CP3 is he going to show a decline soon? Is he still going to be able to play at that high level? Can he stay healthy? But the ultimate thing for me with the Phoenix Suns are DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker. Can they continue to develop and get better? Because Devin Booker took his game to a ridiculous level in the playoffs. And DeAndre Ayton was even really playing at a high level. He just got outplayed by a guy like Giannis in that Milwaukee and Phoenix series. But DeAndre Ayton took huge steps last year. If he can just continue to improve, I think Phoenix can be right back there. Who do you got at number 3?
I got the Lakers here. There's just a lot of talent there for me not to put them at number 3. But I'm just curious how all of this is going to mesh together. Like,
I get
even
it.
just even like Westbrook with this offense, I'm sure he's going to be the starting point guard going into season. I'm just curious how this is just going to all mesh together. But there is a lot of talent. You still got LeBron James, so I got him at number 3.
Gotcha, and I can't blame you for that. But so I had Phoenix at number 3. So number 4, I got the Utah Jazz, who you had at number 2. I'm with you. They, based on the regular season, they could very well get up to the number 2 or the number 1 seed with the way they play in the regular season.
Their problem's the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. They just got to get over that hump and ultimately get over Rudy Gay being really ineffective on the offensive end and essentially the defensive end down the stretch. But they were able to re-sign Mike Conley. They added Rudy Gay, which I think is very beneficial just as a scorer off the bench. Ersan Ilyasova, Hassan Whiteside, Eric Pascal. Yeah, Ersan. Yeah. So so he'll add a 3, a stretch 3 forward there to their arsenal, which they love shooting threes. That's what they live and die by.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you on Donovan Mitchell. Why wouldn't he continue to improve? And if he can play even at the level he played last year or better, he should be in that MVP conversation, honestly.
If we're talking about a team that's similar to the Sixers, I feel like it's the Jazz. Like, we both can't get over that hump in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, second round, man. Who do you got at number 4?
4, I do have the Suns here.
Okay.
And I think you failed to mention one player. I think Mikal Bridges. What is that development going to be?
Yeah.
Is he going to take that next? Because I think he could be like that third option for the Suns offensively, or I guess third or fourth, because if you consider Ayton in that. But yeah, I think Bridges is going to take that next step, and I think it's going to be big. But again, for them, it's the playoffs. I mean, they got the taste of it. They went all the way to the finals. Not a lot of us predict that. What are you going to do in year 2? And well, I'll see how Monty Williams gets those guys up, but I think they'll be fine. But I got them at 4.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Do they have any decline, any hangover from the finals? Devin Booker, they went straight from the finals over to the USA team and competed over there. So you're just wondering how much of a break they got. At number 5, this is where it gets really interesting. I actually had the Golden State Warriors at number 5. And this is just based off, simply they made some additions. Andre Iguodala came back, Jonathan Kuminga. They drafted Moses Moody as well in the draft. Otto Porter Jr., who can be a nice swing man. They did lose Eric Pascal, whatever. Get Klay Thompson back, right? Like, you get Klay Thompson. He was the missing piece in my eyes as far as what they needed, which is a consistent scorer beside Curry, consistent shooter, which you're talking about one of the best shooters in NBA history in Klay Thompson, and also what he brings on the defensive end as well. He's able to lock guys up on the defensive end. You hope the back-to-back knee injuries don't slow him down as much as they could potentially, but I do think mixed with Steph Curry and the way he played last season, he was able to get the reins back of his team. A couple seasons out, without KD there being the number 1 guy. And Steph Curry really got to get a feel for himself on this young team. And you get guys like James Wiseman back with them, mix it in, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins. I think you get a pretty decent product. I don't know how far they can go in the playoffs, but I do have them at the 5 seed there.
This was tough for me, but I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna take a little bit of a gamble. At number 5, I'm gonna go with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Interesting. So you have them taking a major jump.
Yeah, I see. I love John Morant. That's my number one thing. I think he's gonna take another big step in his game. But for me as well, when I'm looking at it, when I'm thinking about this team, I want to see Jaren Jackson take that next step, and I think adding Steven Adams defensively makes him better. I just like the edge that they play with. I think they're going to take that next step. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. They could be one of the teams that get one and done, but I think in the regular season they'll take that next big step in their game. I do like the Grizzlies. I do like them at 5.
Okay, so that is interesting. I do like the Grizzlies. I'm just it's going to take John Morant to take that next step and Jaren Jackson to really take that next step. Love John Morant. I actually love Dylan Brooks as well. The shooting guard there. He's another gritty guy. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I may be sleeping on the Grizzlies there a little bit. Number 6 for me, I do have the LA Clippers at number 6. This is tough for me. I don't want to discredit the LA Clippers, off the board here, but how long is Kawhi Leonard going to really be out? The first half of the season, the first 3/4 of the season, what do they look like without Kawhi Leonard that long? Like, is this a playoff team? It's hard for me to say that.
Right.
It's more of hopeful wishing that they can get themselves into the playoffs just for Kawhi to come back. They still have Paul George, re-signed Reggie Jackson, picked up Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Harry Giles. They brought in some Duke guys for me there to go with the guard. I don't know. I'm very unsure of this pick, but I really just didn't want to keep the Clippers off my board here.
I'm going to go with the Warriors at the spot here. I hear what you're saying, and obviously, like, if we're talking 3-4 years ago, I'm like, hell yeah. They're gonna be the number 1 seed, but there's to me just too much uncertainty. You got some young players, but again, I don't know what they're gonna bring. I don't know what Klay Thompson's gonna be coming back as well. So to me, it's just too much uncertainty for me to go. So that's why I got them at the number 6 seed.
Yeah, and I definitely get that. Maybe 5 is even a little too high. We'll have to see. I guess my thinking there is, Steph Curry can at least get them to a 5 or 6 seed himself, almost.
He was balling last year, and they were like, what, the 9th seed?
Yeah, they didn't even make the playoffs. So
yeah. They were in that playing round, but yeah, and playoffs. Yep. Yeah, man.
So number 7, another team that I'm just really not that high on. As you get down into the West, like you said, the Eastern Conference is just looking a little more promising, right? Like I'm looking at the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm putting them in there because I love Luka Doncic. I think he can will his team to the playoffs, but they just didn't do much to improve, and they weren't that good last season, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with the Mavericks. I do have them at the 7 seed. I think Luka Doncic can will them into the play-in 7, 8 seed, and so on and so forth. But you get through the bottom of these teams, and it's not very promising, man. Who do you got at 7?
7, I got the Clippers here, and I'm with you with the concerns about Kawhi Leonard. I don't feel like they're as deep either when you look at some of these other teams in the NBA. It really does come down to Kawhi Leonard. I mean, he looked fine and way too sexy in the video with Drake doing this little cameo. But to me, that's just it's a question mark. We talk about the Warriors being a question mark. They're definitely a question mark as well.
Yeah, and I think as we get down through these, last 3 or 4 teams, I think all of them are interchangeable. At number 8, I do have the Portland Trailblazers. Once again, Dame, CJ. But once again, just didn't do much to get better in the offseason. They lose Melo. They pick up Ben McLemore, Larry Nance, Cody Zeller, just certainly making Damian Lillard's heart full, with Portland. They do get a new head coach in Chauncey Billups. We'll see how that works out. But, you know, I'll give you my other play-in, you know, 9th and 10th seeds as well, but all four, even the Dallas Mavericks, I feel like you could rotate them around. Who do
Right.
you got? 8?
I have the Mavs here. I do have the Mavs here. One thing I'm concerned about is Jason Kidd.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I'm just curious how this is now his third go around as being coach. So I do think that they kind of downgraded from coach, going from Carlisle to now Jason
Yeah,
Kidd. We'll see. Now, I did want Kidd last year with the Sixers before we were able to get Doc Rivers simply because of his expertise. I thought he got the most out of Giannis. I think Giannis took that step in his game because of Jason Kidd. But we all know he just flames out in different places. And I don't know if
yeah,
that they should have went with Jason Kidd as far as Luka Doncic and the Mavs go, but I got them at the 8 seed.
gotcha. And so then just to round out the 9 and 10 there, I do have the Memphis Grizzlies, who you mentioned. And then I also have the New Orleans Pelicans. That's just me holding out hope that Zion can carry them to the promised land. But once again, a team that, you know, just simply didn't seem like they improved in the offseason, right? Like what did they add to make them a better team? You just hope that him and Brandon Ingram and some of those guys there can grow together. They got a lot of young pieces, but you know, I want Zion in the playoffs just for entertainment purposes, but it's hard. But Memphis Grizzlies is a team that I think I agree with you. They could creep up into those standings.
I at 9 and 10, I got Portland at 9, and obviously me being a Sixers fan, I'm just like, is there going to be a potential where we're trading with Portland sometime this season? Whether I don't think it'll be Dame, but even like a CJ McCollum. But I just didn't see much improvement. And that's why I was like so frustrated with Dame not wanting to leave Portland. Like, you say you want to win a championship, but Portland is not doing that for you. Like, it just makes no sense. So I got them at 9. At 10, I got a little bit of a surprise. I do have the Sacramento Kings here.
Interesting.
Dude, I love De'Aaron Fox. The kid is special. He definitely is, and they actually have been like drafting a little bit better. I think Halliburton's take another step. You still got Buddy Hield shooting those threes, but this guy Davion Mitchell that they got from Baylor, the dude plays both ways, and I think that's gonna be big for Sacramento. So I could see him being that 10th seed this season.
I do love Davion Taylor, and another team you mentioned there that could be in the running for Ben Simmons per se. They do have, you know, there's a couple packages that I would accept from Sacramento. I don't know if they would be willing to offer them. You mentioned De'Aaron Fox. That's a guy I would love to get in a trade for Ben Simmons. Don't know if it's possible. Right. But definitely the Kings have a lot of upside, and it's like you're just waiting for them to capitalize on it. Minnesota's another team that they have guys with upside. You know, you got D'Lo, you got Anthony Edwards, you got Cat. When are they going to be able to take a step? But you gotta wait until you see it, right? Like it's the same thing with the Pelicans. You just gotta wait until you see it. So we'll finish out with the last segment. We'll kind of fly through this one. I just wanted to get your top 5 players at each position. So do you want to just go group by group? We can run through each of ours, you know, briefly discuss it and then move on.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, cool. So we'll start with the point guards. Do you want to go first, or do you want to hear mine first?
Oh yeah, I can go first on this one.
Right.
So at number 1, I mean, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. I went with Steph. I mean, even at this point, the dude is still shooting the lights out, carrying the Golden State Warriors. I think when it's all said and done, he might be the best point guard of all time. It's hard not to go Steph at 1.
Yeah.
2, I got Luka Doncic there. I think he's going to take another step. And we just talked about how the Mavs are going to be. I don't know if there'll be a team that can complement around Luka Doncic, but the kid's talent is still special. Shoot from anywhere. So I got him at 2. 3, it pains me thinking about this player, but Damian Lillard, he's a killer. He's an absolute killer. So I'm gonna go with Dame there. At 4, Kyrie, whenever he shows up, I think he's the 4th best point guard. And then the number 5, just what CP3 does. I don't think that it is. I don't think people really realize what he does. Like going everywhere, bringing a winning caliber player. Just look what the Suns did this year, and a lot of it had to do with what CP3 did. And that's something very valuable people should be looking. So those are my top 5 point guards.
Okay, yeah, I actually love the top 5 selection. Only one off from mine. The top four are exactly the same. So I had Steph, one of the GOATs. He's been around so long now, and I don't think we really realize it. Along with the way, we talk about how Allen Iverson changed the game, changed the culture. Steph Curry has changed the game. Kids want to shoot from half court now, right? Like that's the goal now. Don't just stop at the 3-point line anymore. Luka Doncic, number 2, does everything for the Mavs. The sky is the limit for this kid. Damian Lillard, once again, killer mentality. Sucks that he's in Portland with that just not a good enough surrounding cast. Number 4, Kyrie Irving, whenever he's available. Whenever he's available, he is great. He's one of the best in the NBA. I will definitely give him that. And then number 5 is where we differ. Got a lot of respect for CP3, but as I mentioned with the Suns, I'm worried that it finally shows. Part of me just seeing him injured and beat up throughout the playoffs just makes me wonder. Number 5, I got Trae Young, man. And he really he put the hate in my heart for him to rest when he knocked out the Sixers. And we saw it in the first round. He went into New York City, knocked the Knicks out of the playoffs easy. Came into Philly, won, 3 games in Philly, I believe, that we lost. Yeah. So Trae Young's got that dog. He's got that killer in him. I know everybody thinks he might slow down a little bit because the rule changed, but I don't know. This guy's way too talented for all of that. And he just makes that team run. Like he can get 10 to 12 assists just off lobs, and it's virtually unstoppable. So I do have Trae Young rounding out my top 5 there.
Okay. Do you want to go to what position you want to go to now?
Let's move to shooting guards. This one will be interesting. You want me to go first this time?
Yeah, you can go first this time.
All right. So I believe this one would be obvious, but James Harden is my number 1. And the only reason I do consider James Harden a point guard in reality, but on the Brooklyn Nets, it does appear that he's going to be running the shooting guard role as long as Kyrie's there. So I do have James Harden. He's one of the best scorers, one of the best offensive players ever. Number 2, I think, after you get out of James Harden, it's kind of like pick your poison with these guys. I do have Devin Booker just because his go-to moves for me are literally unstoppable. Anything in the mid-range, fading away, similar to Kobe almost. I know everybody compares him. I know he's not yet to that status, but just the gameplay, the style of his play, his go-to, knowing his spots, right? He just gets to spots on the court and it's money. Number 3, I got Donovan Mitchell, who we talked about earlier, as being that, a possible MVP candidate this season. The thing I like about Donovan Mitchell, his 3-point shot has become knockdown, and it wasn't always like that. I watched him in the ACC, being a Duke fan, and his game was not like that in college. He was a driver. He gets into the lane. He would hit the occasional 3, but if he's taking threes, that's kind of what you wanted him to do, kind of bails out the defense. Not anymore. This guy is knocked down from anywhere. He hits step backs. He hits Euro steps. He hits floaters. He drives the lane with incredible power. He's able to body defenders in the air. So I really love him. And on the defensive end as well, he gets it done. Number 4, I got Bradley Beal. He's another one of those guys, similar to Devin Booker for me, that he just gets to his spots. He knows where to get to. He knows where he's comfortable. And can just put the ball in the basket. That's what it comes down to. And then number 5 is where it got really testy for me, but I went Zach LaVine in hopes, like you said earlier, that he takes that next step. If he can put together winning basketball, I think that would be huge in Zach LaVine's resume as far as what he can do, and then also in Chicago's fortunes.
Yeah, seriously. All right, number 1, I agree with you. I got James Harden. How can we argue on that? At number 2, I do have Bradley Beal. You said it. He's one of the most exciting players to me to watch. Playing on those Wizards team, it definitely sucks seeing a player like caliber play on a bad team like that. But
maybe that actually, that could have an influence on why I had him at 4 versus, like I said, him and Devin Booker have very similar games.
The winning is not there, but the game is certainly there.
Yeah.
At number 3, I have Donovan Mitchell. You said it. The dude just put the team on his back pretty much, and that's definitely what you want to see. And he keeps getting better every year. He definitely keeps getting better. At 3, I got Book. I mean, you saw what CP3 he was able to do to his career. Just alleviate so much pressure off of him, off of his shoulders. And then at number 5, or my 5, right?
Yeah,
And
5.
5, I got PG actually, and I think what I saw in the
Oh,
playoffs,
I like that. I like that pick.
putting the Clippers on his back. I've always been critical of PG as well. But last year he showed a lot to me, so I got him at 5.
He gets a lot of unnecessary hate. It's kind of weird to me, honestly. I don't understand why. You know, I guess it's some of his off the court, like some of the things he said off the court, but I never get it. I thought he balled out last year, and that's actually a good call. I would consider.
I think people were ripping him because of the bubble when
Yeah,
they he did not show up, and I think that's what
pandemic
people were ripping him up. Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so we'll move on to small forwards. Who do you got?
All right. So this was tough for me, but at number 1, I'm gonna go with Jason Tatum at number 1, simply because I think he's gonna take that next step in his game, and I think he's already a prolific scorer to begin with. So I got him at 1. At 2, I got Bron because I mean, let's face it. I mean, Bron is who he is, even in year 30 of his NBA career. He's still a dominant player. At 3, I got Kawhi. I mean, to me, the only issue is the health with Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Can he stay healthy for the LA Clippers? If he can, I mean, obviously we know they are a good team, but Kawhi, I mean, I still see the triple doink in my head. So at number 4, I got my boy Jimmy Butler. Jimmy, I miss you. We know what Jimmy is. He's a dog. He balls. He just wants to win, and he wills his teammates to win. And I love Jimmy Butler, and his offensive game is awesome as well. And then at number 5, I got Chris Middleton. He shut me up in the playoffs in the finals last year. And I think he deserves to be number 5.
Okay, so this is probably something we should have talked about, because I guess, you know, you probably have KD in the power forwards, and I had KD in the small forwards. And I know he is a power forward for the Nets. Like, I'm not going to argue with you there. But just to kind of create clarity, I do have KD in my small forwards. Okay. So I think either way, I guess I'll see which way you go with the power forwards. I do have KD number 1 in my small forward group. I do have him over Bron. KD, I mean, you saw him go head to head with Giannis. They're at the top of the East right now, and they made their name known, right? Like they really solidified it. Kevin Durant is doing his thing in another city. Everywhere he goes, they seem to win. He seems to be the best player on the team, and that's a going trend even when he is with other superstars. LeBron James, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here with Jason Tatum, because I'm with you. I love Jason Tatum's game. I love his ceiling, where he can really go in this league. But LeBron, right? He's the guy. He's the king. He keeps himself in the best shape that you could ask for a guy his age. And the only question mark you really have about LeBron is, when is the age going to hit him, right? When is it going to hit his physicality or his physique? You saw it down the stretch in the playoffs. He was getting kind of tired, right? He was going hard out there, but he was battling with Jay Crowder, and it was just too much. I mean, to put a team on his back, I'm not sure if he can do that all the way anymore. When you mentioned how important AD is to that Lakers franchise or that Lakers team. Number 3, I'm with you. Jason Tatum can score all over the court, can do a lot of things. Even plays pretty good defense these days. He puts the effort in, and that's all you can ask from a guy his size. Kawhi Leonard at number 4. I'm with you. Injuries, that's it. He's one of the best two-way players in the NBA. When he's healthy, he can score from anywhere, and he does have that dog mentality. Number 5, Jimmy Butler. You mentioned everything about him. He's a leader. We watched him, 2 years ago in the finals. He took that Heat team that had no business in the finals, took them to somewhere that they hadn't been in a while. And with Kyle Lowry there, the experience, some of the other pieces that they added, no reason that he can't get back up in those ranks of the Eastern Conference. But Jimmy Butler is a baller.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. So move on to our forwards here.
Yes, sir.
At 1, I got who you had at the 3s.
Okay.
I have KD here at 1. I mean, the dude is the best scorer in the world, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in today's NBA, it's a lot of positionless basketball. But he is the 4 here in Brooklyn, so I got him here at number 1. Number 2, I got Giannis. I mean, the man just won the NBA Finals, and I think he put the team on his back. He took another step in his game, and I'm curious now. We put him in a light as a star, as a superstar in the NBA. Now, can you go back to back? And obviously, it's a team. That's up to his team. But this is now where he's at now. This is now where he's at in his career. At 3, I got AD, and for me with Anthony Davis, can he get back to that 2020 bubble Anthony Davis where he was looking more like a 3 than he was a 4?
Yeah.
He needs to be able to stretch that floor a little bit more for the Lakers. But I think he will be able to do that. I think they're going to bounce back. I think him and Bron are going to bounce back this year. At 4, I got your boy Zion. The dude is really talented. It sucks that the Pelicans are ruining him, kind of like they did with AD. But we'll see what he does this year. But I think the talent-wise, he's the 4th best power forward in the NBA. And at 5, I got a little bit of a surprise, but I think Draymond is still just
Nice.
overall. I think he's so underrated, and now he's becoming more and more and more of a leader. Just as the way he took Wiseman under his belt last year, before Wiseman went down, was really spectacular. And I just love what Draymond adds to the game, even at this point of his career.
Yeah, and what it comes down to is you picture the Warriors without him, and like, what are they, right? Like he's almost as important as those, as Steph Curry. He's not Steph Curry, but he is almost as important to that team. So pretty much my rankings do, if whether KD's a small forward, power forward, he was going to be number 1 for me regardless. So I'm with you there. Giannis comes in at number 1 for power forwards for me, with the way with me having KD in the small forwards. You mentioned everything. Can he just continue to play at that level? I think even last year, he was kind of an afterthought for MVP of the regular season, but in reality, he was putting up the same numbers, if not better, than his 2 MVP seasons. And he kind of was just getting left out just because he wasn't able to capitalize in the playoffs. Now he's done it. What can he do next? Where can he go next, right? Number 2, I'm with you, Anthony Davis. I do agree. I think he's going to have to stretch the floor with Russ and LeBron on the court together. And it is a weird fit, but ultimately AD is the piece that can make them go all the way, right? Number 3, I do have Zion. I'm with you. He's just a powerhouse. He always plays with intensity. And that's why I loved him at Duke. That's why I love him in the NBA, because he doesn't get like easy buckets, right? Like his buckets are tough. He's driving the lane. He's a big guy. He uses his body. He uses his bounce. And he's always getting to the rim. Number 4, I do have Domantas Sabonis. I mentioned it earlier. I think he's very underrated. He does a lot. He can average 20 points a game. He gets you a double-double, 10, 11 rebounds. But he's also a pretty good facilitator as well. I believe he averaged 4 to 5 assists last game for the Indiana Pacers. So he is the centerpiece for that Indiana team, and I do actually like him. He is a multiple-time All-Star as well. And then number 5, I definitely could have gone Draymond now that you brought him up, and I apologize for him being kind of an afterthought for me. But I definitely agree with your reasoning, and he's a perennial defensive player of the year as well. Candidate, I should say. Number 5, I do have Pascal Siakam. Really love his two-way game. He can get better on the defensive end with his size, but his scoring ability, he can just light it up at times when he gets hot. The only thing with him is he needs to build some consistency. That's his problem. He needs to be able to be that number 1 guy now that Kyle Lowry's not there, right?
Yeah. It's funny because to me, I was contemplating between Draymond and Julius Randle.
Interesting. Yeah, Julius Randle's another guy that could deserve to be up there. We'll see how he continues.
Couple guys to be on this list, man. Couple guys.
It's hard with 5. 5 is a hard number.
Yeah, man.
All right. So the prized possession here, the centers.
I mean, you know where I'm going to start with this one, man. JoJo. We have these debates all the time. And I'm going to tell you. So number 1, Joel. Number 2, Nicola.
Yeah.
I think for me, they're both really tough to guard. But just watching Joel every single night, he's an ultimate mismatch. The dude is the dude is like as strong as an offensive lineman. He's got everything in his arsenal as far as his offensive game goes, and defensively, I think he's so to me, I put him at 1 because I think that he's an overall better player. Whereas Nicola, I mean, dude, it's like a point guard playing center. Like the guy creates for others like no other center does in the NBA. And he could score on his own as well. There's a reason why he won the MVP last year, but I'm going to take my Joel over Nicola at 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 3. I'm taking Bam Adebayo, and I'm thinking he's going to take that next step in his game. Again, another complete center here, and I think that him being able to play with Kyrie and Jimmy Butler for this season, I think that's going to be a benefit to him, and I think he's going to take that next step in his game. At 4, I got Rudy Gobert, obviously 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Controversial was last year, but he's still one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. So I put him there at number 4. And then number 5, I got Karl Anthony Towns. And I think for me, my main question marks is just his drive, not his drive per se, his leadership skills, because there's a reason why Karl Anthony Towns has been in the playoffs once in his NBA career.
Yeah.
That's a little bit concerning. And that's the only reason why I put him at 5.
Okay, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have the exact same order. The only thing I'll comment on with you, I'm with you on Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic. I think it's just a preference in play style, like what you like more. If you like a facilitating big man, when Jokic wants to, he can go down in the paint and get a bucket whenever he wants. He can also shoot the 3, but so can Joel Embiid. He can do everything, and he's probably a better defender as well. So that's where I differentiate between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. But it is all preference at the end of the day. It's an opinion. Bam Adebayo, I'm with you. He takes the next step. He can guard kind of anybody in reality. I know everybody says that about Rudy Gobert. Bam Adebayo doesn't have a problem getting out there on the perimeter and guarding someone. I've seen times where the Miami Heat are playing the Brooklyn Nets, and Bam Adebayo steps out and guards Kyrie Irving. Like, he's not afraid. He's not afraid to be embarrassed as well, which I think that's one of the issues with Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, number 4 on my list. You mentioned it, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. One thing, when you said that, it stuck out to me. What if Ben Simmons won the Defensive Player of the Year? Imagine how that narrative would have been different in the offseason, right? If he gets that, is he have more value, right, than just coming in second in that running? And then 5, Karl Anthony Towns. He has all the talent in the world. Can he put it all together? Can he be effective on the defensive end, which is ultimately what Minnesota needs the most? But we are the same at the center position, man.
Yes, sir.
We got through it all, my man.
I got it, man.
Stick it in here with me.
Of course, man.
It's an exciting time, man. NBA season is back.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. For people who follow me know, this winter I'm more excited about the Flyers than I am about the Sixers, simply because Ben Simmons, essentially. But what I will say of basketball, it's a sport that, I always say, like, basketball here in America is what the world is to soccer. Like, anyone can pick up a basketball, go down to your local park and shoot some hoop. Yeah. It's like it's a universal sport. And I enjoy talking about it. I definitely enjoy talking about it. And I just hope that we can be a little bit more drama less here in Philadelphia. We can get to some more basketball, because this is a very historic. This is a great basketball city, man.
Totally agree, man. And certainly was a pleasure having you on. I'm gonna have to get you on Turf Talk. I know we got some collabs coming soon, so I can't wait to work with you more, as always, El Parcero. But if you want to just go ahead and plug yourself, tell us what's going on. We'll definitely re-promote this tomorrow. Get you out there, man.
Yeah, man. So, guys, you can follow me pretty much on every Platform as Twitter, Parcero Philly, but most of the other platforms, El Parcero Philly. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and yes, TikTok as well. You can find my YouTube channel as well too. I do run a daily podcast for all things Philly sports. If you are just a Philly sports fan in general, then definitely give it a follow, give it a subscribe to all my platforms there. I keep it busy. These days, definitely TikTok is the one where I'm mostly busy on, just simply because of the platform that is TikTok these days. But Scotty, I appreciate you having me on, man. Definitely, we're gonna have to do some more stuff like this. I would love to do some more stuff with DSM in general. So we'll definitely be around, man. We'll be chopping it up.
Love it, man. Guys, be sure to check out Parcero out. Like he said, he has all 5 Philly sports covered on the daily. There's nobody that does it better. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Parcero Philly. As your host here, this is Scotty. You guys know where to find me at Scotty Drown on Twitter, on Instagram. I am on Facebook as well. Hit the link tree. DSM Media. Make sure you're following, subscribing to DSM Media at DSM_media. As I told you before the show, this is presented by Manscaped. Be sure to use our DSM code on manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That is going to be it for this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I will see you guys next time. Peace.
Yeah.